Certain ghost stories, specifically those of the haunted house variety, have become a part of American folklore. From the Winchester Mansion in California to the Lizzie Borden House in Massachusetts, most of us have heard about them at one time or another. And it's easy to think of these places as rare oddities, enigmas scattered only here and there throughout the country. But that's not exactly true. Just ask any paranormal investigator or ghost enthusiast. More than likely, they will tell you, haunted houses are everywhere.
In my days, when I was young, I saw a lot of visions. I saw...
Here at the house?
Here at the house, yes. Especially in the backyard back there, I used to hear crying. I don't know if it was a crying woman, but you know, you would hear crying. I would see like people, like there was a señora walking from the back of where the apartments used to be. She would walk down the path right there, and she was like walking in air. And then as far as she got to the front gate to the street, she disappeared.
Back in February, I visited the home of the Suarez family. I was interested in hearing more about the alleged hauntings that have taken place there, which began when Mr. Suarez was just a little boy.
One night there was a knock on the window. My dad was asleep. He was sleeping on the chair, and there was like a knock on the window. And I went to the window, and this person appeared on the front window, and I got so scared that I had bad dreams. I was actually in like where I don't know what they used to do when you used to go into shock. Mm-hmm. You know, I was scared to sleep by myself. I had these nightmares.
You got traumatized.
It's like traumatized, you know,
yeah.
And it took a long time. And my grandmother used to light candles for me and pray for me and stuff like that. And you know, I saw a lot of visions of good and evil.
A floating spirit of a woman. The appearance of a ghostly stranger standing at the window of a child's bedroom. Unexplained noises and feelings of being watched, which you will hear more about later. What exactly is going on in this seemingly normal and welcoming home that has been a part of this family's life for generations? More on that and my recent investigation at the reportedly haunted Acadia Ranch House in Oracle, Arizona. Welcome to episode 9 of El Presidio Project.
Uncovering the creepy side of the old Pueblo. This is El Presidio Project. Strange Tales of Tucson.
Hey everybody, I'm glad to be back with another episode. I know it's been a while, but a few months back I somewhat hit a wall when it came to local stories. Either the location was unavailable or there wasn't enough historical information out there. So there wasn't much I could do but wait until something came along that would have enough material to fill an entire episode. At that point, I decided to combine 2 previously recorded investigations into one. These 2 separate stories had a common theme, the haunted house. Before I get started, I'd like to thank the Suarez family for allowing me to go into their home and ask questions. I wouldn't have been able to do this episode without their help. Also, a big thank you to haunted historians for facilitating the investigation at Acadia Ranch and allowing us to use some of their equipment. Here is episode 9, Restless Spirits. Tucked away near the South Tucson Bosque Yaqui community and the Julian Wash stands the home of the Suarez family. Looking at old maps of the area where the home was built, one dating as far back as 1904, it appears there was only desert land and, of course, the wash where water from the Santa Cruz River once flowed. I went through numerous 19th century newspaper articles, trying to find anything related to the land in the nearby wash that could potentially trigger a haunting, but didn't come up with anything. I looked into it further and finally came across a report from 1945. On August 9th of that year, a sudden rainstorm classified as a cloudburst hit Tucson, causing a bridge collapse about 4 miles south of the city on Highway 80. As a result, 4 women, 2 children, and 3 men drowned. The body of one female victim was recovered on Silver Lake Road. Judging by the path of the wash, this would mean the flood carried the victim right past the area where the home of the Suarez family now stands. Could this tragedy be connected to the hauntings there? Was the floating woman Mr. Suarez claimed to see the spirit of the flood victim? Maybe. But there's more history to the Suarez home than what I was able to find in the local newspaper. For many years, a small neighborhood gym stood on the family's property, which has long been closed and converted into a hangout spot or man cave. Once a popular destination for residents to work out and socialize, Chapo's Gym is now a private meeting place open to friends and family only, a change that maybe isn't acceptable to a person or persons that may have had a connection to the place when they were alive.
I could hear noises in the man cave. I hear, like weights. My dad used to have a weightlifting gym, and you could hear the weights like cling. When like somebody's putting them together and they hit each other, they cling. I used to hear that. I used to go inside and tell my dad, "Yeah, Daddy. Now I know you're here. How you doing?" Everything. I used to thinking I'm going crazy.
Right.
I thought I was losing it.
So the man cave that you have, it used to be a gym. It was a gym before. My dad built it as a weightlifting gym. And he used to have guys come over and work out. And then after he passed away, all the stuff stayed there. My brother came, my younger brother came and sold most of it. And then I turned it into a man cave. And that's like a storage place now. Once you walk in there, you're gonna see it. But it was just. And was it like local guys, or were they athletes?
No, local guys.
Just local guys.
Yeah, just local guys that my dad knew, and they were looking for a place to work out. So my dad had that Chapo's Gym for years and years.
Back then they didn't have like a Planet Fitness and Choose.
Yeah, Choose like that,
Right.
It was just a little nighthood workout center, And man, he would have people over here all the time. He would charge $2 nightly on a workout, and then monthly guys were paying like $15, $20 a month, which was cheap, My dad would just,
And the man cave that you have now, that's the original building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Suarez believes the presence he's felt and heard in the man cave could be the spirit of his late father. Other members of his family believe this as well, but generally, if the spirit of a loved one is present, there's usually some sense of comfort, regardless of how strange the situation might be. The man cave, according to Mrs. Suarez, however, can produce feelings that aren't very peaceful at all. She spoke about an experience while conducting a blessing of this area of the property.
I was blessing the house, the rooms actually, not the whole house. Because I told my friend Sue to get oil, she says, and then make a sign of the cross like in the entrance, like on the door jamb or whatever. So I went in there, but I went a step further. I was actually blessing it with holy water. So I went into that room, and I walked in, and I went straight to the closet, because that's where it's like freaky. And my hair, I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps just by, what was I saying? Go to the light, So I was nice. I said, go to the light. I forbid you to be here. And then I turn around and say, get the hell out of my house. I don't want you. And then I didn't know this, but I did it the right way. I walked out backwards. But as soon as I went into by the closet, it goosebumps. So then I went into David's room. Wasn't too bad, the goosebumps. I went into this room, Philip's room, and he can't sleep at night. He says, I just feel a presence. But when I was blessing his room, I didn't get the goosebumps I did in that middle room. So when I went to the man cave, and I went straight back, because there's like a little room where I used to have those punching bags. So I went back there. Goosebumps on goosebumps. Freaky. And I was blessing it, and I was saying the same thing, and I was walking out. I just can't believe the goosebumps that I got.
Did you feel like somebody was in there? Or was it just fear?
Just a fear. It was fear. Eerie feeling, really, because I wasn't really, I can't describe it. I wasn't really scared because I continued doing it. It was just eerie because it gave me goosebumps. Mm-hmm. One time when I was washing dishes, and he comes, he goes, "What, Mom? What? Because you knocked on the door?" And I said, "No, I'm washing dishes." So then about an hour passed by, and then David comes out of his room. "What do you want, Nana?" I go, "What?" He goes, "You knocked on my room." I said, "No, I didn't, baby. I was still washing dishes, cleaning up and stuff." And so it's things like that, knocking on the like sometimes when I'm in the shower, I swear to God, I can feel that like somebody's like leaning against the door. But I'm not scared. Yeah, I'm not scared because at that time I'm thinking it's them trying to get in, to go to the bathroom. But hello, I'm taking a shower. But it doesn't scare me. But I can feel like a presence outside of the door.
What about the scratches that you got?
That was about a couple of days. I get goosebumps. That was a couple of days after I did the blessings. I'm getting goosebumps. They were like this, like three, and then they came like this to an end. They were spread. The scratches came together at the end of the.
So there were 3 scratches on your arm.
On my
on your stomach.
On my stomach, and I'm like, what the hell? I know I don't scratch myself that bad. And then the dogs, because their nails aren't that sharp. It was like a paper clip, like a needle. When you scratch yourself deep enough where it draws blood, and then it scabbed over. So I could feel it because I was giving myself a shot. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then I go to the mirror, and sure enough, there's 3.
And it was very thin.
It was thin, but it drew blood because it turned into a scab. So I was raised. I could feel it because it was raised on top of my stomach.
Mrs. Suarez would later tell me she sometimes feels like someone or something is watching her from the open garage that stands a few feet away from the door of the man cave, and often avoids that area of the house altogether. The combination of these feelings and the mysterious scratches appearing after the blessing of the house led me to suspect that there was more going on in there than just a benevolent haunting. Joined by Mrs. Suarez and her son, we ventured out to the man cave, where I conducted a brief EVP and spirit box session. If there's anyone in this room, can you make a noise for me? Could you maybe knock on something? It's windy, so there's a lot of outside noise. Who's in this room right now? Okay, I'm gonna turn on the spirit box. Is there anybody back here like to talk? Maybe make a noise, say something. If there was something paranormal lurking in the man cave that night, it wasn't willing to make its presence known to me. Not verbally, anyway. The video camera I set up during this short experiment ended up producing footage with absolutely no sound whatsoever. The camera was fully charged and tested before I used it. It's strange that the audio would malfunction around the exact moment I began the EVP session. We left the man cave and returned to the house where I continued my search. After reviewing all of the audio recorded that night, I didn't seem to pick up anything out of the ordinary. I'm not able to say whether or not the Suarez home is haunted based on my one visit. But as someone who grew up in a home where unexplained things happened all the time, I can relate to their experiences. For over 50 years, paranormal activity has been seen, heard, and felt on their property. What exactly is causing it remains a mystery, but I have no reason to doubt their claims. A few months later, I took a short road trip to the town of Oracle, Arizona, which is located about 35 miles north of Tucson. Oracle started out as a small mining community sometime during the 1800s. By 1880, a man named Edwin Dodge and his wife Lillian established a post office and a boarding house known as Acadia Ranch. Eventually, Acadia became a well-known sanatorium for those suffering from the lung disease, tuberculosis. It was believed the fresh mountain air would cure those afflicted with what was referred to back then as consumption. Unfortunately, many patients died there. Today, Acadia Ranch is open to the public as a museum and serves as the Oracle Historical Society. On certain nights, paranormal investigators known as the Haunted Historians host ghost tours and late-night investigations there. By day, the property looks like a very well-preserved Southwest-style ranch home. But at night, when the sun goes down and the chill hits the air, you suddenly become very aware that you're sort of in the middle of nowhere. There are no streetlights or traffic noise. It's eerily quiet and dark. Acadia Ranch's past history seemed to come alive under these dreary conditions. It was at that point the realization hit me. I was about to spend the next few hours walking around a haunted 19th century medical facility with nothing but a tiny flashlight to light my way. Once we all settled in, we were placed in groups. Each group would spend time investigating various areas of the ranch. The birthing house or birthing shack, the patient room where original items from the sanatorium are kept, the parlor, and an enclosed area known as the icebox, which was once used as a makeshift morgue. Our host had this to say about the birthing house.
I hate going there, it's dusty and I get allergies. So it is dusty. The building used to be a birthing house. They would send the females that had tuberculosis and send them in this little shack and wait till they had their babies so the baby wouldn't get sick, I guess. And sometimes it would be like 6 to 10 females would get pregnant, and they would put them all in this little shack. When you get out there to see, it's kind of sad. And it looks like you store your lawnmowers or your potting soil. That's what the lady next door did. She ended up owning the property. I think in the 30s or 40s when it sold, the property line got in half, and the lady that owns this property, the family that owns the property, ended up with the birthing house. And they used it to store their lawnmowers in their potting soil and stuff like that. This lady just donated it back to us, back to the Historical Society 2 years ago. She said, this is her exact words: "I'm giving this motherfucker back to you guys. This thing is haunted as hell. Fucking demons in here. You guys can have this shit back." So there's growls in there. People get scratched. So before we leave tonight, if there's anybody who does not want to go in there, that's religious and does not want to go in there, I don't think there's demons in there, but there's something that wants to make you think it is. I've been in cases where I've just had demons. You know, I've seen them. I haven't seen them. I've seen evidence of them. And I don't believe there's a demon out there, but it's a negative, pissed off, mad, angry spirit.
So with a warning like that, it's hard not to laugh at the possibility, especially if you're not the type of person who believes in demonic entities. But I did notice a lot of people weren't as anxious to spend time in the birthing house as much as they were prior to hearing what our host had to say. My time spent in there with my group didn't conjure up any negative feelings. We didn't pick up anything on audio or witness any activity. The patient room, however, was a lot more active, possibly due to the items that remained from the original facility. A doctor's bag, various glass bottles of medication, and a vintage Victorian-style wheelchair. Our group squeezed into this room and attempted to communicate with one of the most active spirits on the property, a nurse who roams the grounds in search of patients to treat. Eventually, certain members of my group began smelling something resembling hand sanitizer or rubbing alcohol, and strangely, sulfur as well. We all took this as a sign to push on further with our questioning. Then suddenly we all started to feel a little bit frustrated. And then this happened.
REM pod is on?
Yeah, there's a green light on it.
Yeah, it's on.
It's very light.
Street
green.
light.
This is on. Okay.
Okay, it is on. Alright. So I'm going back to lights out. You saw what he did. Can you just go over there and make that thing go off?
Do the same thing I did, please. Only for a lot longer. Actually, not a lot, just a little bit.
Is there anybody in this room that wants to talk to us?
All you gotta do is go right next to the antenna. That's all you need to do.
What was that noise?
I think we should move to the post office.
There was a noise I heard and I don't like it at all.
After the voice asking, "Is there anyone in this room that wants to talk to us?" there is a faint but audible groan, which only the young man who had just joined us heard and reacted to. Here it is once again, amplified.
Is there anybody in this room that wants to talk to us? Is there anybody in this room that wants to talk to us? Is there anybody in this room that wants to talk to us?
A few seconds later, we picked up a single word on the spirit box.
Go into the box?
Let's go to the box. Yeah, let's try the box.
What's the box?
Your box.
Oh, I didn't hear like 6 minutes.
We should
you
give
shine
it
my
time.
light
We
right
should
here?
just give it time.
Shine my light.
Just give it time.
Well, I think we got the feel for the room. We've been in here for a minute.
I haven't.
Powering
Well,
on.
we have.
Let's see.
We've done this already.
I'm gonna set this down.
Patient?
Patient.
Patient? Okay.
Put this on the bed.
Patient? Patient? Patient?
I find it interesting that the three things we experienced in that room fell into a sort of logical order within a short period of time. First came the smell of rubbing alcohol and sulfur, followed by the disembodied groan, then what sounds like a female saying, "patient." Could this all have just been an awesome coincidence? And were those feelings of frustration coming from us because it was late at night and we were getting tired? Or were we somehow picking up on the energy of the spirits who might have been reacting negatively to our intrusion between a dying patient and his nurse? Soon after we heard the word patient, we moved on. My first round in the parlor room was with an entirely different group made up mostly of medical staff. Our host used this area as a surveillance center, with various live feeds of footage from multiple night vision cameras stationed around the property. We gathered around the large computer screen and watched others conduct their investigations. We were told to keep an eye out for any strange shadows or lights. As we sat there, discussing what was on the screen, mostly dust particles that looked like orbs, a voice came through on my digital recorder. Much like the groan in the patient room, I didn't hear it until I listened to the playback of the audio footage, Before I share the clip, I'd like to note that it's entirely possible what I picked up was one of the ladies in the room talking. But what's strange is that the voice is whispering very close to my digital recorder, which was on the desk in front of us. I would have noticed had someone leaned in and whispered something onto it. This possible EVP contains what I believe is a female voice whispering, "Give it a shot," followed by the sound of my digital recorder getting bumped by something, then ending with a heavy sigh.
There's some in there.
I really wish I could conclude this part of the podcast with an incredibly creepy spirit box session or EVP taken from the scariest place on the property, the morgue. But after reviewing the hour I spent in there, I was unable to find anything. However, although it didn't come through on my digital recorder, we did experience a strange sequence of chime sounds through the spirit box. Maybe these were residual sounds from the medical facility or the morgue itself, which incidentally once served as a post office. But we didn't walk away unscathed from the icebox. A few members of my group reported being touched, as well as feeling sick to their stomachs. I didn't experience any of those things. I will say, though, it was incredibly uncomfortable. To be standing there knowing it was the last stop for these people before being laid to rest. The floor, the walls, every inch of that small room contains the memory of those who once walked into Acadia Ranch in search of a cure, who tragically never made it out. Coming up next in the Weekend Creepshow Report, a brief and somewhat spoiler-free review of BBC America's breakout hit series, Killing Eve.
The good, the bad, and everything in between. It's the Weekend Creepshow Report.
BBC America's crime thriller Killing Eve recently concluded its first season with a jaw-dropping cliffhanger that had me literally screaming at my TV screen. It's going to be a long wait for season 2, and I'm already looking forward to it. If you've never heard of Killing Eve, don't feel bad. A lot of people haven't either. I would have never known it existed had it not been for the trailer that randomly popped up on my Facebook newsfeed. The series is based on the novels Villanelle by Luke Jennings and stars Sandra Oh, whom you might remember as Dr. Christina Yang from ABC's Grey's Anatomy. Oh plays Eve Polastri, an MI5 officer with an amazing talent for profiling killers. Eventually, she is recruited by the no-nonsense head of MI6's Russian section, Carolyn Martins, portrayed wonderfully by the multi-talented Fiona Shaw. Carolyn secretly hires Eve to profile and track down the person responsible for a string of high-profile murders. As time goes on, Eve becomes increasingly obsessed with finding the killer. So much so, her life begins to fall apart. But she's determined to track down the target, who she believed from the very beginning was female. Her hunch, of course, proves to be correct. The cold-blooded assassin turns out to be a young, beautiful, and deeply disturbed woman named Oksana Ostankova, aka Villanelle, played by the English actress Jodie Comer. Early in the season, Villanelle becomes aware that she's being tracked down by Eve, and a mutual obsession begins. Villanelle finds herself both emotionally and physically drawn to Eve, for reasons we learn about later on in the series. This obsession between the two plays out as one of the most suspenseful cat and mouse games I've seen in a very long time. Although Killing Eve isn't a horror series, which I usually like to review, it definitely has its dark and terrifying moments. What sealed Comer's status to me as a complete nightmare, and I mean that in the best way possible, was a nail-biting moment at the end of Sorry Baby, the 4th episode of the series. Eve's goal is to rescue her former boss from Villanelle's clutches. He's desperately running across an empty field, horrified as Villanelle chases him. But what makes the scene so intense is that she's not really running after him. It reminded me of the 80s slasher films, where the good guy is hauling ass away from the danger and the killer is just strolling behind, very confident in the hunt. Suddenly, Villanelle gets close, and she sorta comes out of nowhere, with this steady pace, blank stare, completely void of humanity. And I thought, she's the boogeyman. Michael Myers without the mask and wearing designer clothes. That moment was so well done and honestly more nerve-wracking to me than any recent horror movie I've seen. So then I thought, okay, this is probably Villanelle at her peak scary. I was so wrong. The next 3 episodes, I Have a Thing About Bathrooms, Take Me to the Hole, and I Don't Want to Be Free showcase Comer's talent, in my opinion, at its best. Villanelle is a psychopath, no question about it, but the character's mannerisms and morbid sense of humor gives the audience much-needed comic relief from all the chaos. The final episode of the season, entitled God I'm Tired, wraps up with more Eve and Villanelle greatness. I wish I could spoil the ending, but that would be a disservice to anyone who hasn't seen it yet. Writer-director Phoebe Waller-Bridge does a brilliant job with bringing the story together. The entire first season is only 8 episodes long, and is available to purchase and stream on Amazon. Killing Eve is dark, funny, suspenseful, wonderfully written and acted, and everything in between. Check it out and enjoy. Well, that about wraps it up for this episode. As always, thank you for listening. Until next time all, bye-bye.